Hello, my friends. It's Nick, the ASMR nerd. And it's a rainy, late November night. And I thought we would just have a real casual video here. I don't have it scripted or anything, so it might be a bit more rambly than usual, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Today, I'd like to count down and talk about my top 3 favorite mechanical keyboards of 2022. Now, you may know that I look at a lot of mechanical keyboards on the channel here, and this year I reviewed or unboxed or built over a dozen mechanical keyboards, which I think is a good number. It's not the only thing I do on this channel, and I like to take some time to evaluate a keyboard, a few weeks to get to know it before I put out a video with it. So and actually I do have a few more keyboards that you're probably going to see in 2022 coming up in December. So those keyboards won't be factored into this evaluation today, but if you guys like this video, you can let me know down in the comments, and next year I can do another one like this, and I'll make sure to include the keyboards that did not make it into this one. So, but with over a dozen keyboards that I've been playing around with and evaluating this year, it was actually pretty tough for me to come up with a top 3 here. I had to think pretty long and hard about it, and actually I may end up having a honorable mention or 2 in this video. We'll see. Before we jump in, I want to let you know that this video might not be happening without this video's sponsor into the AM Day of the beautiful graphic t-shirts and other elevated everyday apparel. They wanted to sponsor another video right now because they are having an awesome sale right now, like an amazing sale right now, and you only have a little bit of time left to take advantage of some of their best prices of the year, up to 80% off. That means t-shirts for as little as $5, and these are not any ordinary t-shirts. They have beautiful, exclusively licensed designs like this awesome wolf t-shirt that I've got right here. I love these vibes, and they feel kind of wintry. They really work for this time of year, but all kinds of other amazing designs that you're not going to find anywhere else. Plus, their t-shirts are super comfy. They're a little bit stretchy, they're nicely fitted. They have a very flattering cut, and they're really easy to take care of as well. They're pre-shrunk, so you can throw them in the wash, throw them in the dryer. They have become my favorite t-shirts to wear, and I wear them now pretty much all year round, even though it's getting a little bit chilly here right now. I still don't want to give up wearing the Into the AM tees. So, but hey, they have all kinds of apparel other than just tees as well. They have hoodies, they have joggers, they have shorts, they have underwear, they have tank tops, all kinds of stuff, and lots of that is on sale. Big discounts right now. Additionally, you can save 10% on top of the crazy savings that Into the AM has going on for their Cyber Monday week sales right now. You can save that additional 10% by using the link down below at the top of the video description. You'll save that additional money, and you will be supporting me and this channel while you're at it. That sounds like a win-win to me. So thank you very much if you do decide to use that link. And be sure to check out Into the AM's awesome selection of beautiful graphic tees at incredible savings, up to 80% off. $5 for these awesome tees. Now through December 5th. So, you have a little bit of time if you're watching this right when the video comes out. Hopefully you can take advantage of those savings. Get yourself some nice teas, maybe pick up some to gift others for the holidays. Honestly, amazing product, super great prices, and awesome sponsors. So thank you to Into the AM for their continued support of this channel and for sponsoring today's video. So with that said, there's a few other things I want to let you know before we really dive on into the keyboards here. One of them is that this is just my personal top 3 list. This is not an empirical evaluation of these keyboards. This is purely based on what I used the most this year, really, and what I enjoyed using the most of the keyboards that I, had my hands on this year. And my needs might be different from yours. So just because I put one keyboard ahead of another, or one of them doesn't make my list, doesn't mean it's not a good keyboard, and it doesn't mean that you wouldn't enjoy it or like it. It's just my particular usage patterns, use case, and preferences, which are informing the selection of boards for this top 3. So if a keyboard doesn't make it into this list, it doesn't mean it's bad. And as I said earlier, I actually had a really tough time narrowing it down to these top 3. Another thing is, I've had a lot of requests to do like a top keyboards of all time, my top favorite keyboards that I've ever used. And that's very ambitious. I have a lot of keyboards. I don't even know actually how many keyboards I have anymore. I legitimately don't. People ask and I'm like, I don't know. Like a few, probably more than a few dozen. The point is really that keyboards evolve and change over time. Not the individual boards, but I mean mechanical keyboards as a hobby and as items. And there are innovations, there are improvements that, usually begin sort of at the enthusiast level and then eventually trickle their way down to the more affordable models. And so comparing a mechanical keyboard that released in 2022 to a keyboard that came out back in 2017 or 2018, it's kind of an unfair comparison. Things have moved along quite a bit since then, and our expectations and the trends have changed as well. Not to mention a lot of those older products may not be available anymore, so it just seemed to me I would focus my efforts on 2022 products. But the flip side of that is that there are a lot of keyboards that come out every year. I mentioned I've looked at over a dozen here, but there's probably, hundreds of mechanical keyboards that launched this year alone. So this is just a very small slice of the larger mechanical keyboard pie. It's just what I managed to get my hands on this year. So don't treat this as some kind of definitive list or like gospel of like, these are the must-have keyboards of 2022. I will stress again, this is just my personal top 3 list of the boards that I ended up using the most or enjoying using the most for various reasons. So it's probably a lot of preamble and disclaimers, but I thought it was important to lay that groundwork. So let's jump on into the list, shall we? In my number 3 position, we'll work from 3 down to 1 just to maintain the suspense. My number 3 position I am giving to the glorious GMMK 2 in a 96% layout. GMMK stands for Glorious Modular Mechanical Keyboard. This is manufactured by Glorious Gaming, and Glorious has made some real waves in the enthusiast mechanical keyboard community over the past few years. They have worked to bring a lot of enthusiast level features and customizability, that's the modular part, bring those to a more mainstream audience and mainstream price point. And I would say they've been very successful with that. The GMMK2 is their second kick at the can, as the name suggests, although they also had the GMMK Pro between the first GMMK and the 2. But the Pro was a bit more of a premium product made of solid aluminum. The GMMK2 is a more budget-friendly option. The bare bones kit, which consists of just the case and the PCB, the positioning plate and the stabilizers, and then whatever dampening they have going on in here. The bare bones kit is, I believe, $80, which is a very solid price for what is a very solid and lovely sounding keyboard. This particular specimen here features, as I mentioned, the 96% layout, which gets you almost all of the keys of a full-size or 100% keyboard, but in a more compact layout, which is something I really appreciate because I like to save space on my desk surface when I can, but I also like to have all the functionality that I need at my fingertips without a whole lot of messing around with shortcuts and such. This is a theme that you'll probably notice as we talk about some more of this year's keyboards that I really enjoyed. But the cool thing about this layout is that you still get the full-size numpad, of course. So whenever I'm doing work that requires a numpad, or not whenever, but often, this will be my go-to keyboard. There's a lot of number entry, data entry. So the layout is a definite win. This particular board is equipped with Glorious's Lynx linear switches. Lynx. They are a slightly heavier linear switch, so smooth action from top all the way to the bottom. There is no bump in their action. It's simply smooth motion, and then of course they bottom out, and you can hear them then, but they have a nice mellow thocky bottom out sound, and they are very, very smooth. That's largely because these ones are factory lubed, and you do pay extra for that from Glorious, but you can always lube them yourself if you want to take the time to do that. Even unlubed, I imagine they're pretty good, given that they're made with, relatively premium materials to fairly tight tolerances. So the Glorious Lynx switches on here really sound and feel excellent. And then finally, the keycaps that I finished this build with are the GPBT, so Glorious PBT. That's a type of plastic. PBT plastic is a common premium plastic material for keycaps. The GPBT Celestial Ice keycaps. So this is one of Glorious's premium keycap sets. It comes in at $100 US. It's made with this reverse dye sublimation process, which gets these lovely crisp white legends on these dark saturated looking keycaps with this lovely gradient. These are made of a nice thick PBT plastic. They feel good under the fingers, but perhaps most importantly of all, they look amazing. But the combination of the GPBT keycaps with the Glorious Lynx switches on this really heavy, dense, nicely dampened bare bones GMMK2 kit made for a keyboard that surprised me. It surprised me with its weight its density, its thockiness, and how well the stabilized keys are implemented. For being just a relatively affordable bare bones kit, the stabilizers on these things sound really good. Listen. Very little rattle or tick in any of those. A little bit in the backspace, but not too bad at all. Has a little more bite than the others. But and I didn't do anything with these stabilizers. I didn't, pad them, band-aid mod them, lube them, anything. So that's just stock performance. And I was extremely impressed with that. So overall, this made my list because it just feels and sounds really nice to type on. I think it looks amazing. I think the layout is really good. But I will say that this is the most expensive board in my top 3. Once you get all of these parts together. And if you wanted to save some money, you absolutely could by just picking up the bare bones part, the kit, and then putting some other switches and keycaps on there that would save you some money. They're a little more budget friendly than the lubed Glorious Lynxes and the GPBT Celestial Ice. But anyway, I was really overall quite impressed with the offering from Glorious this year with their GMMK2, their Glorious Lynx linear switches, and their GPBT Celestial Ice keycaps. If I had to pick out a theme for my keyboards, my favorite keyboards this year, it would be learning to love linear switches, because I have conventionally been a fan of tactile switches. Those are switches that have a little bump part way down, so you get this kind of resistance and then a little bump before the switch bottoms out. I like that bump. It feels nice when you're typing, but I think maybe I've been won over by linears this year, or at least I can now love linear switches as much as I love tactiles. I used to think that linear switches were very boring and just lacked character. And I think it's probably just because I had never really typed on any really nice linears. But switches like the Glorious Lynx definitely have helped to convert me to the linear side. In my number 2 slot this year, this is a keyboard that probably won't surprise too many of you to see here. It is this little guy right here, the Everest 60 from Mountain. Mountain is a relatively new company. They also have this sort of, taking premium and enthusiast grade features and bringing them to a more mainstream market kind of philosophy in a similar way that Glorious does. Mountain took a different approach, though. They really love their modular keyboards with detachable numpads. So the coolest sort of marquee feature about the Everest 60, which, as you can see, is a compact 60% keyboard that eschews a number of the F-row keys and the nav cluster and the numpad over here in favor of a small, compact footprint. But the thing I love about this is Glorious said you can have your cake and you can eat it too, by including a detachable numpad that goes on either side of the Everest 60. As far as I know, it's the only 60% keyboard to feature an ambidextrous detachable numpad. And I think that's really cool in and of its own. I should point out that you might be noticing the Mario keycap, that did not come stock on this keyboard. That was just given to me by a friend, and I popped it on here. I think it fits really well, though, actually. So I just by virtue of that cool modularity with the numpad, I think this deserves a shout out. But Mountain went way harder than they had to on this, and came up with a keyboard that is darn near perfect, I dare say. This keyboard features some really lovely sound control, some nice dampening courtesy a big silicone pad down at the bottom here that you can hear. Gives it a sense of wonderful solidity and density. And really makes it feel and sound lovely when you're typing on it. Mountain also jettisoned the traditional Cherry MX switches in favor of their own custom designed switches. They have a linear type, a speed linear type, which is what this is equipped with right now, and they have a shorter travel distance than the standard linear, and a tactile type as well. This has their speed linears, and they are once again factory lubed and very pleasingly smooth. They're not the very best linear switches I've ever used, but they are pretty darn good, and they're available from Mountain for a reasonable price. To top it off, Mountain decided to opt for PBT plastic keycaps for the Everest 60 rather than the ABS plastic they had used previously. Their new PBT keycaps are reasonably thick. They have a nice feel to them, and the big benefit of PBT, of course, is that they don't shine up with use over time with those finger oils. The caps you see on this Everest 60 are not actually the stock ones. They are a kit that you can buy from Mountain, but they're reasonably priced, I think $35. And the stock caps that came on this board were of the same excellent quality, just in solid black. But this just gives a little more visual pizzazz, in my opinion. There's some other really cool stuff about this board. It's got 360 degree RGB edge lighting. You can't see that right now because it's not plugged in, but that's what it's got. And once again, the stabilizers are really well done. That maybe is the second theme of this year. Linear switches and nice stabilizers, because stabilizers are maybe the most important thing when it comes to the sound and feel, or differentiating, I should say, the sound and feel of a really nice board from one that just feels average or cheap. There's lots of factors, of course, but stabilizers are a major one. So once again, the stabs on here are very well done. If you want to give it a listen here. Again, these are all stock. I haven't modded these at all myself. When you're listening to stabilizer, feeling how it responds, you're looking for smooth action. You're looking for a quiet action, so you don't want any rattle or ticking, and you don't want an unpleasant bottom out where it feels really hollow or really clattery. You want just something that feels smooth and controlled and a bit dampened, in my opinion, is preferable. And I think they absolutely nailed that stabilizer tuning on the Everest 60. This is also available for a reasonable price, I think, for the quality of this board. It's got a nice aluminum top plate and positioning plate here. I think this regularly goes for 140 US, but actually, as part of their November sales, which I guess will probably have just ended, unfortunately, by the time you see this video, but for their Black Friday type sales, it was down to 80 US dollars. And at that price point, it's a ridiculous deal. It's an insanely good deal. That's pretty much unbeatable. So, yeah, that's my number 2 winner for this year. My number 2 favorite keyboard, the Mountain Everest 60. And in my number 1 spot, this is a board you might not expect, and actually, I didn't really expect this to be my number 1 board of the year either. And yet, here it is. My number 1 keyboard of 2022 is the Iconix OG80 Wormhole. This, like I said, was a bit surprising for me because when I first unboxed it and started using it, I liked it a lot, but it wasn't, it didn't stand out to me as like head and shoulders above the others. But there's a reason why it became my favorite, and that is largely because it's just such a good layout, and it has a lot of other stuff going for it. But layout for me is often king because there's certain functions that I need, to really feel comfortable using a keyboard as my daily driver. And so here we have a 75% layout where we have dedicated arrow keys down here in the bottom right. We have a handful of nav cluster keys, which include a dedicated home and end key. I use those a lot while editing video and audio. Because it is a 75% board, we do have a full F row up here. I make liberal use of, for example, the F2 key because that's a shortcut for rename file in Windows. I find I use that quite a bit. And we've got a dedicated print screen key here, which I actually use quite a bit as well. So in terms of the layout, it has pretty much everything I personally need. Nothing I don't really. So from a functional standpoint, I found it really useful. But the other great thing about this board is that it is wired and wireless. So it's got Bluetooth, it's got 2.4 gigahertz wireless, and it's got USB Type-C wired connectivity. And I find that really handy because I will often be swapping out keyboards on the fly or unplugging my keyboard to plug in another like USB device like my audio recorder or my camera to take media off of it. And the wirelessness allows me to do that freely. I can have it plugged in when I, don't need that cable for other stuff. And then I can unplug it, switch it to wireless mode, and then just plug my camera into that cable, when I have to do that. So it's a convenience thing, but it's nice to have the wireless, which the other 2 keyboards in my top 3 here don't have. So that's functionally why I like this thing. But what about the usage experience? Well, it wouldn't be in my top 3. It wouldn't be my number 1 if I didn't think it sounded and felt good. So once again, we've got linear switches on this thing. These are TTC Ace switches, and They have a wonderful thocky kind of sound to them that I really enjoy. And as far as linears go, they are some of my favorites. I don't actually know if they're factory lubed, but they feel very smooth, and maybe beyond that, they feel very stable. They have a wonderful stability about them that just is very reassuring. It feels like they're built to very tight tolerances. There's very little wobble with these switches, so I really enjoy typing on them for that reason. They're a little bit heavier than your average linear as well, which I think helps them feel more premium. They do feel really nice. And then you've just got the overall sound signature of the board itself, which, you know, as you can see, doesn't actually have a lot of fancy dampening or anything going on. You can probably see in the back there, there's actually a fair bit of hollow space. Nonetheless, it really works out and makes for this lovely sound. It's kind of marbly sort of sound. That I really enjoy. And once again, the stabilized keys are very well done on here. A little bit more aggressive than the others, but still well controlled. That's a nice enter key. Nice shift key. The space bar, I actually wasn't crazy about at first. It's very clunky sounding. It's got a big clunk to it, but I've come to really appreciate it. It's a loud space bar, but I kind of like it. It's very satisfying. And then, of course, the aesthetics of this board are pretty darn cool as well. This thing has this sort of clear plastic, or not totally clear, but semi-opaque plastic aesthetic going on. But also the colors have this really cool kind of vapor wavy vibe to them. And we got this like neat space bar on here. And this really cool like fin thing going on the back edge here, if you can see that, you know. So altogether, I can't necessarily explain how or why, but just all those things kind of came together to make this, the Iconics OG80 Wormhole, my most used keyboard of 2022. It's sort of my default daily driver right now until something else comes along and displaces it. In terms of pricing, it falls in between the Mountain Everest 60, which is a bit cheaper, and the GMMK2 with all the fully loaded bits and pieces there that you saw, which is a fair bit more expensive. I think this guy comes in around 180 to 200 depending on how you configure it. Of course, it's got RGB and all that kind of stuff as well. Those are my top 3 keyboards of this year based on how much I use them and how much I enjoy using them as well. And I will remind you, there are lots of other boards I used this year, which I did like quite a bit, but for one reason or another, just didn't end up using as much. However, I do have one honorable mention that I want to throw out, and that is the Melgeek Mojo 84. It didn't quite make it onto my list, but it's another 75% layout keyboard. It's got a really cool custom profile for the keycaps that Melgeek has come up with. It's got a very striking or like unique aesthetic. Definitely eye-catching. It once again has this kind of clear plastic aesthetic too, although this is sort of a crystal clear rather than the frosted on the OG80 there. But the real standout feature of this board is just how soft and well controlled it sounds. Listen. spacebar. So it's got a very soft, dampened sound to it. That's in part due to the dampening that's built in here. You can see it on the back there. But also the gasket mounting that this keyboard has. It provides this really soft, slightly squishy bottom out, which I think many people would probably really appreciate, and I do as well. But it's just a little too soft for me. I like something with a bit more bite, I found, at least this year. Maybe my opinions will change next year. But I just wanted to put this in here as an honorable mention to congratulate Melgeek on a really well-designed and executed board that for some people is probably darn near perfect, I would say. It's similarly got the wired and wireless thing going on. The aesthetic is going to be divisive, but I think they really did pull it off very well. So that, my friends, concludes my ramble of my top 3 boards of 2022. Like I said, these are just my personal favorites for a handful of reasons that are particular to me. But I would like to hear about your favorites as well. Maybe you've been rocking a keyboard this year that I've not tried out yet. Or maybe you've been rocking one of the ones that I did review or check out this year, and it's become your favorite as well. But I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. And don't forget, I do have some more keyboard videos coming up this year. We're not quite done yet. There'll be another 2 or 3 that you're probably going to see this December. So it's going to be a keyboard Christmas, a Keybmas for you this year. Yeah, if you enjoyed this, I'd be happy to do more keyboard roundup type videos or like top favorite type videos in the future, perhaps this time next year. So please do let me know down in the comments as well. A big thanks to our friends at Into the AM for sponsoring this video, for encouraging me to do it now before the year got wore on any further, so that you guys can hear about my favorite keyboards, but also so that you can save up to 80% on awesome, elevated, everyday apparel from Into the AM. Like I said, that's t-shirts starting at $5. These are no ordinary t-shirts. They're awesome looking, awesome feeling, easy to care for t-shirts, and you can save an additional 10% of anything from Into the AM using the link down at the top of the video description. But their Cyber Monday week sale is ending very soon. So if you want to take advantage of those savings, make sure that you head on through, click on that link, and check out what they've got on sale. The 10%, you can use that anytime. You can always save 10% at Into the AM using my link, and you'll support the channel when you do so. But the 80% savings, that is limited time. So head on through and check out what they got. Big thanks again, Into the AM, for sponsoring this video. All right, friends. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching, and I look very forward to having you back here next time. Bye for now, my friends.